Camera Basics 101. Here's a quick picture of my Canon T3i mounted on the tripod. On the lens, the 50mm portrait lens, is the automatic focus and the manual focus switch. That's on the lens itself. Now I move the switch to automatic focus in on the center of the kit with my spot meter, and then put it, once it's focused, I don't trust my eyes anymore. Once it's focused, I put it back to manual focus. You have to leave it at manual focus, because when you turn the lights out and press the shutter, that thing's going to start focusing all over the place. It'll be a horrible picture. Then you have the focal line, which is a circle with a line through it, and I'll explain it in a sec. When you used to open up the back of the old 35mm cameras to load a roll of film, that circle with the line through it is directly over top of where the line of film would go across the back. And it's also the same position now in the digital cameras for the digital light processor. Now in this picture you'll see that the light enters through the lens, hits the mirror inside the camera body, which is reflected up to the pentaprism, over to the right, and then out through the viewfinder. And when that mirror lifts up, it exposes the light sensor and the shutter behind it. So I've taken the lens off, and I've pressed the timer, and I'm videotaping just to show you the mirror and then how it flips up. Now because there's no lens on, it's going to be very quick, as you just saw. So what I'm going to do now is slow it down so you'll be able to see it a little slower, how the mirror flips up, exposes the digital imaging processor, which takes the picture while the mirror is flipped up. And there it goes there. See? That's how it takes the picture. When it comes to shutter speeds, what you have to know is that the faster the shutter speed, the more you're going to freeze the action. If you want shutter speed priority, set your dial to TV, not AV. So, depending on what your needs are, if you want to take a long exposure at night, you need a tripod, and you're going to use a 30 or 40 second exposure. But you're also going to get movement. And I'll show you in the next picture here what it's like to have movement. There it is. The greenery is in focus, but the water is moving, and it's blurry. And you do that on purpose. Faster shutter speed, you get to see little beads of water, birds in flight with feathers, and hummingbirds sucking on a flower. So what you have is, on the old lenses, you can't do it with the new ones. On the old lenses, if you took the lens off the camera body and depressed a button on the back, and then you could move the f-stop ring and you could see the diaphragm open and close. Now it stays open when you're looking to take your picture, but as soon as you press that shutter, it closes or stays open to whatever aperture setting you've got the picture set for. As you can see, he's slowly going f11, f16, f22, and I would imagine that this particular spot right here, it's f22. Small opening, big number, depth of field. Now when you use your aperture to affect depth of field, if you select a large aperture with a very small number, 1.8, 2.2 or 2.8, whatever your lens is, whatever the smallest number is, that's the widest opening for that lens, which means it lets in a lot more light, very shallow depth of field. In this particular picture, or series of pictures, you'll see the stickman and the pyramids in the top left corner at f22, the narrow opening, greater depth of field, everything's in focus. And if you scroll your way back down to f1.4, the lower right, the stickman's still in focus because that's what you focused on. That was your focus point. This image probably explains depth of field best. You got a guy taking a picture on the top. He's got a distance, he's focusing on that puma or bobcat or whatever it is. That's the focus point. With the 1.8 lens, nothing in front of it and nothing behind it or beyond the bobcat is in focus. Very narrow depth of field. If you look at the bottom picture, you have the focus point hasn't changed or the distance, but he's using an f22 lens or aperture, and that means everything probably 10 feet in front of the bobcat to infinity beyond the bobcat is in focus. Large depth of field. He's taking a picture of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chess pieces, and as he takes the next picture, he's going to go from narrow depth of field. He's going to work his way through his lens to maximum depth of field. Okay, so he's taken the picture with the f2.8. The queen is in focus. That's it. Everything else is blurry. f4, the one to the right of the queen, nice and sharp. The one to the right of that one, nah, not so much, and the rest even worse, and the back still totally blurry. The next f-stop he's using is 8. You can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4.5. They're in focus. The other two are not, and the back still blurry. You go up to f11. Almost all the chess pieces are in focus. You can actually start to see some of the stitching in the back of the chair, and that the trees are in the back and they're green. Now f16, all the pieces are in focus. The chair is almost in focus, and you can see detail on the trees in the back. So that's what you have. On the left, you have narrow depth of field, 1.8 or 2.2, whatever your lowest number is on your camera. On the right, maximum depth of field. And this says f16, but I use f22 because that's how big my lens will go to. Setting up the studio. So, I have 2 whiteboards, 8x10. Got them at Michael's. And on the bottom one, both of these are kind of, one in the back is taped up to one computer case, and the one on the bottom's got an 8x10 glass from an old picture frame on top of it to give a little bit of a reflection, and it's sitting on another computer frame or a computer body. Now in this picture you'll see that I have 28 inches from that focal line on the camera body to the center of the kit, and the camera is just slightly above. Any higher and you will see you'll have a hard time getting rid of that line where the two boards meet. So here I am taking this picture. I'm just pressing the timer release now on the shutter button, and as it's counting down, the camera's starting to come in focus to me, and when it opens, I then start moving the light to the left, to the right, over top of it, down below a bit. You're just trying to get rid of the shadows that are being thrown off by the window behind me, above and behind me, and by the light. So every time you move the light around and you get rid of that shadow, it gets rid of the shadow on the finished camera, or the finished picture. So I'm still kind of waiting for this. I have no idea how long it's going to take, probably 20-30 seconds. And then, but when I hear the shutter close, I shut her down. And that is the picture that was generated with that little display. Now read these, take your time to read these. I've explained all the icons in the back of the camera. You can pause the video if you need a further explanation. Post-production, as you can see, I use Nikon photo editor. It came with a Nikon camera I bought light years ago, but it still works, and it's really user-friendly. I'll send it to you if you want it. So, follow the instructions, pause the video if you have to, if you want to read what I'm doing, and maybe enlarge the video so you can get a little closer look at what I'm doing. But there's a short video after this of me actually cropping and setting the sharpness level and the contrast. So you can wait for that. So here I am, I'm about to crop this picture. It's not the same picture we were working with. I just brought this one up just so you can see me crop it. So I select the tool and then position it on the image, click and drag. That part will be saved. The part in white will be saved. I then get I click those two for medium sharpening and a little bit of color correction. Then I move the contrast slider a little to the right to get rid of the line where the two whiteboards meet. It doesn't change the picture. It's not, and then I click Save As, the original file name. It overwrites it and saves it. So I took 2 pictures of this kit in the same setup. This one was f22. It was a 20-second exposure, and I sharpened it slightly in photo editor. Everything's in focus. You can see Sarah, the CT number. Now I took the same composition but I used f1.8, and it was 1/3 of a second shutter speed. Now the room was dark, and all I had was the light that I was holding in my hand, and it was still 1/3 of a second. Why? Because that aperture is wide open. It lets in a ton of light, but that's the picture I got. Everything's in focus that I was focused on, the front right fender. Everything else, it's a degree of blur. And so endeth the lesson.